all these days we've been speaking of 9 attributes or 9 qualities that the Gita confers on us. This doesn't mean that the Gita's message is restricted to these 9. We're only talking about 9 important points that are useful to us. The 9 were dynamism, happiness, strength, the 3 gunas, and yesterday we discussed the 3 yogas. What is yoga? And how the yogas, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, and as a last resort, hatha yoga, help to calm this mind. The mind is in a state of constant agitation, constant flux. And it is these agitations of the mind that prevent you from acting properly. The agitations lead to sorrow, and as a result, you don't grow to your full potential. So anybody who's seriously interested in achieving something in life, rather than just existing, becomes focused on handling this monkey of a mind. Because the mind has 2 characteristics, asthira and chanchala. Asthira, it constantly flits from place to place. And chanchala, even at one place, it is in a state of flux. Because of these 2 qualities, it is likened to a monkey. A monkey has precisely these 2 qualities, constantly jumping from place to place. And even at one place, is fidgeting. How do you get this monkey of a mind to a single pointed focus where you can achieve and leverage your talent, use your talent, and come up with excellence, is the whole theme of the Gita. And an exemplary example of this is Hanuman. Hanuman was a monkey. Hanuman, which means that we all start a spiritual journey with a mind that is asthira and chanchala, that is flitting from place to place and restless at even one place. And if a monkey like Hanuman can get his mind to single pointed focus on the highest ideal, so therefore, in order to help you deal with this mind, you have to be able to fix a goal that is higher than your selfish, self-centered interest. This is of prime importance, not because the world needs you, but because you need to do it to get your mind in place. And the highest ideal presented by this Hanuman's example is he fixed his attention on Rama. Rama means Atman, which is the highest ideal, the goal of self-realization. And once he was inspired with that ideal, his mind became focused, fixed. So, this control of the mind, if a monkey like Hanuman could get to that single pointed focus, where he was able to achieve and participate in the conquest of the 10-headed monster Ravana, what can't you and I do is the question. So therefore, this mind, the 3 yogas help to get the mind under control, to have a hold over your desires, to reduce the number of desires, improve the quality of desires, and change the direction of desires from that of the world to the higher, the spiritual, the transcendental. When you do that, you reach the state of uparati, as we saw yesterday. This is the state of renunciation, where you have no longer any interest in the world and all that the world has to offer. You have weighed it in the balance, as Swami Ramatirtha said, and have found it wanting. Found what wanting? The whole world wanting. This is in our genetic code. As Indians, it's in our genetic code. This basic understanding of the futility of the world And therefore it is that we attract foreigners. Recently, a few days ago, we happened to be with a group of foreigners who went to Rishikesh. And one of the things they noticed, which we don't notice because we're part of the system, is that they said, when the ordinary man on the street, ordinary people smile at you, there is a beauty to it, there's a grandeur to that beauty, to the smile, because number one, they're not doing it because it's not a touristy place, it's not as if they want something out of you. There's no desire. Number two, it doesn't spring from subservience either. It comes even if they are poor people. They smile and that smile is free from any wanting, free from any desire to get anything out of you, and that is the most magnificent thing. This is what strikes foreigners. Because they've traveled the world over and they find this lacking. So renunciation is not wanting anything from the world. Why would you not want anything from the world? Because you're self-sufficient. As we saw the very first day, when you shift your attention from deficiency motivation to abundancy motivation, when you're aware of all the millions and millions of things that you have been blessed with, why would you want one more thing? And you are convinced that if there is anything in the world that you don't have, it must be because I don't need it. It must be because it is completely useless to me. This is spirituality. This is the state of renunciation. Renunciation is not giving up things. A person gives up things when he is not able to handle it. It's like, why would a person give up a wife? Because he is unable to handle the wife. But if you can get on well with the wife, why on earth would you want to leave? Similarly, the world is there for you and all of us to enjoy. There is nothing wrong with physical contact with the world. But what is wrong is in the dependence on the world. Why is it wrong to depend on the world? Because basically the world is unreliable. It fluctuates. It's a roller coaster ride. It has its ups and its downs. And if you don't want to get crushed and traumatized by this roller coaster ride, you must exercise this option which only a human being has, to stand on your own 2 feet. This is the state of renunciation. Uparati, when you are withdrawn from the world. Renunciation is growth. Just as a caterpillar is born, and the life of a caterpillar is restricted, it lives on, nibbles on a leaf, it's unable to move in labored movement. Totally constricted, restricted life it leads, and yet the caterpillar is born only to metamorphose into a butterfly and take off into its wings, soar into the sky, and experience that freedom. Similarly, you and I are born in this world like caterpillars. We're born limited, we're born dependent, we're born constricted. But we're not meant to die like that. We're born with all the facilities to grow into that realm of freedom and take off on our wings of Vedanta, wings of spirituality. And you must exercise this option, otherwise you don't grow to your full potential. If a child is enamored with toys, it is understandable. But if an adult fails to grow to appreciate finer things than just playthings, it is the most tragic thing. And this is what we all are. You must grow. We are all spiritual infants. You must grow to that spiritual adulthood. What is this growth? Most of us are stuck at the bottommost level, at the level of the body. All that matters to us is sense objects and how we can feed our sense organs and keep our body satiated. That is the lowest level of happiness that anybody can have. When you rise above and learn to understand higher things, emotional joys, you escalate to the level of the mind, then You yourself, you have a choice of the emotional joy and the physical joy. You yourself opt for the emotional joy, and whether you have the physical or not, it doesn't make any difference to you. Just as a mother will deny herself physical enjoyment to satisfy the child. But no mother in the world feels deprived if the child is satisfied and she is denied a certain physical enjoyment. You move still further to the intellectual. We have our students going by the thousands to abroad, particularly to the United States to study. That was a slip. So, when they go abroad to study, they are denied physical comforts. Most of them come from affluent families where they're pampered to no end here. They're denied all that. They're stuck in some little room and they don't have the facilities that they enjoy here. Emotionally also they're deprived. They don't have a mother and a grandmother and an aunt and all that poring over them, waiting on them, waiting to fulfill every whim and fancy of theirs. And yet, have you seen students when they go there? The first 3 months they're crying and crying, they're so homesick. Yet they stick on there. Why? Because the intellect is satisfied. The student has gone there to do an MS or a PhD in a particular subject, and it is that intellectual satisfaction that keeps them going, even though they suffer at the mental and physical level. Now what the Gita is talking about, what they mean by renunciation, is moving up to the level of the spirit. Once you'll move to the level of the spirit, intellectual aspirations, emotional joys and physical preoccupations pale into insignificance, like once the sun rises, even if it's a full moon, the light of the moon pales into insignificance. You have to remind yourself that there is a moon still in the sky. And that is the state. And therefore, when a person is given the choice of worldly things, he says, no, I don't want it. I want the spirit, like Nachiketas, the young boy who went up, who wanted Brahma Vidya, who wanted this knowledge of the self, decided to appoint Lord Yama as his guru. Lord Yama, god of death. What courage! That itself shows the courage and conviction of the young boy, because you and I shudder, shiver in our shoes at the very thought of death. And here is a boy who goes into the jaws of death, appoints Lord Yama as his guru, because then he knows that until he reaches the state of realization, he cannot die, because the guru's commitment is that he must confer this knowledge onto him before the child dies. So he goes up. I'm cutting a long story short. The Lord Yama, when he is away, he is very busy in Iraq. So when he comes back, the Nachiketas has been made to wait 3 days. And Lord Yama's family members are very perturbed about it, because a Brahmin boy means a highly sattvic individual, a fine specimen of humanity, has been made to wait. So they're not comfortable about it. The Lord Yama says, don't worry, I'll deal with him. I'll make up for his having to wait 3 days. So before he could speak to him, he says, Yama tells Nachiketas, I grant you 3 boons because you were made to wait 3 days. The first boon that he asked for, now if you and I were granted 3 boons, what would we ask for? 1 Mercedes. Or, what is that? 1 farmhouse outside Delhi. What else would you ask for? Whatever. Nachiketas said, when I came here to heaven and I left my home, my father was disturbed. Please appease his suffering. So the first obligation, he's functioning on obligations, not on his desire. First obligation is to the family. So he says, please appease, please give shanti, peace to my father. Tathastu, says Lord Yama. Second boon that he asks for is, teach me Yajna, fire worship. Fire worship means, as you've seen earlier, the capacity to sacrifice for the welfare of humanity. What a boon to ask for. Lord Yama immediately says, Tathastu, given. The third boon that Nachiketas asks for is, teach me Brahma Vidya. So having dealt with his obligations in the world to his family and to society, to humanity, he now deals with the third highest obligation that every one of us has, is self-knowledge, Brahma Vidya. That's when Lord Yama is stumped. Stumped not because he doesn't have knowledge, but because he wants to make sure that Nachiketas is a deserving student. So he tells him, says, my boy, you're so young. You've got years and years of enjoyment to do back home in Delhi. Why do you want to waste your time here with Brahma Vidya? So he says, you see there, and there were cows in heaven, not here. Cows, cattle represent wealth. India then and even now is a predominantly agricultural country, and therefore cattle represented wealth. So he offered him the wealth of the heavens, not earth. Nachiketas, not interested, disgustedly turned around to the other side. He didn't know what was there. He just turned away from the cattle. When he turned the other side, Lord Yama thought, okay, this guy is not interested in wealth, but the other side there happened to be heavenly damsels there. So Lord Yama thought, okay, money is not what makes him, what activates him or what interests him. It's this. So he says, you can have them also. And that's when Nachiketas says the famous words, Tavaiva vahas tavanritya gite. You keep the song and dance. You keep the wealth and the women. Give me Brahma Vidya. So what the message here is, that given a choice between the best that the world has to offer, heavenly enjoyments, heavenly wealth, heavenly enjoyments, and realization, he opted for realization, which means what? That the enjoyment that comes from the spirit is far greater than the world. So, if you don't understand this, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, the world and all that it has to offer, its inherent value is zero. So when you go about from morning to night, year after year, accumulating and acquiring worldly things, remember one thing, don't stop acquiring, acquire them. But understand that you are acquiring only zeros. With that understanding, you can grab what you want. Then he says, the value of spiritual knowledge is that it adds a 1 before the zeros. And then there is tremendous value addition. It is so true. Whatever you get in the world, you may gain wealth, money, power, position, the best that the world has to offer, per se it is of no value. It only helps to destroy you. But you add a little bit of spiritual knowledge, kinchit. Shankaracharya says in the Bhajagovindam, Bhagavad Gita kinchit adhita, just a little. Once a year, 6 days here is enough. And then there's value addition. And that value addition is what you should be interested in. So the Gita doesn't say don't have worldly things. The Gita simply says add that 1 before the zeros. Otherwise, all your worldly acquisitions will amount to naught. So, this is renunciation, the ability to understand the right value of all that the world has to offer. Once you understand the value, what is the real value? What is the value of all that the world has to offer? Zero. With the understanding of what the world has to offer, you can go through life whichever way you want, then you will be in a state of renunciation. And when you are in a state of renunciation, you remember we discussed Wordsworth's poem Daffodils. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, vacant of thoughts of the world because you're no longer interested in the world, pensive in the thought of reality means meditation. So once you reach the state of renunciation, uparati, that mind which is no longer asthira and chanchala, that mind which is no longer flitting from place to place but is mature, stable, available to you, then you give it a point of concentration, meditation. And as you meditate, your mind is fixed on one thought. It does not move to any other thought. And the intellect is constantly supervising this repetition of the thought. After a time, you're supposed to stop the meditation. When you stop the meditation, the thought flow stops. When the thought flow stops, the mind goes extinct because the mind is nothing but a flow of thoughts. Only silence remains. The intellect which discriminates between sound and silence now has no job to do because there is only silence. It gets transfixed in that silence. And that silence is realization. So you got it. What must you do in order to get there? There must be ananya chintan. As Krishna says in the 22nd verse of the 9th chapter, Ananyash chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Famous verse. So if you develop this capacity, when the mind is mature, you develop this capacity of ananya chintan, constant thought of Atman, constant thought of reality, constant thought of God in and through your worldly activities. How do you achieve that? Krishna gives out the brilliant portion, the 12 Yajnas, which we started yesterday. Up to verse 27, we did 5 Yajnas. The Yajna of the worldly goal, the absolute ideal, sense perception, sense control, and self-restraint. And now we move to verse 28, where 4 more Yajnas are given.
Dravya yajnastapo yajnaha yoga yajnastatha pare svadhyaya jnana yajnascha yataya samshita vrataha.
Others again offer wealth as sacrifice, penance as sacrifice, yoga, spiritual practice as sacrifice, and ascetics of rigid vows offer knowledge of self, svadhyaya jnana, as sacrifice. So here he gives 4 more yajnas. Those of you who were not present yesterday, the 12 yajnas are based on the fact that yajna or havan is a very important Vedic ritual, ancient Vedic ritual, which is performed by priests chanting mantras while fire is invoked and the participants come. Each participant offers his or her ahuti into the fire, offering into the fire, and when the offering is, ahuti is offered, the fire shoots up. The belief is that fire god is kindled, propitiated, and fire god blesses the participants. When all of the ahuti, the fire wood and the offering is burnt up, the ashes are distributed to all, and it is applied in 3 stripes on the forehead, and all the participants go to the temple. Now this is a ritual, this is a sacred ritual. In the Gita, Krishna has internalized this ritual. All rituals are meant only to be internalized. The external ritual is conducted only to get your mind into a worshipful attitude. When the ritual ends, the internal worship does not end. It continues. And to remind us that there are these 2 things that are happening in a yajna. There is the offering and there is the kindling. So he gives 12 internal yajnas, that 12 internal sacrifices, 12 internal rituals that we can all perform, by which we are reminded of that absolute goal of self-realization in and through our daily activities. It's so practical because you don't have to take time out, you don't have to go looking for wood to burn, you don't have to look for a priest, you don't have to go through this laborious exercise and then only worship. You can do it through your daily activities right here in Delhi in November 2004. So, here now he's talking about